Welcome to my favorite segment of the week. Every week from now up until the Super Bowl. This is Idaho Sports Talk, Prater the Ballgame. Our video audience we welcome, and let's head over to our Double Tap Pub hotline for our NFL playoff correspondent, former head coach of NFL and Boise State, Dirk Koetter. Coach, we got you to do this again. We're super pumped to go through all these games with you. How's Dirk Koetter doing on a Friday?
Dirk Koetter is wishing it was better weather outside.
Yes, I love it. Hey, Coach, I'm going to start you off with maybe one of the craziest couple days in the history of your profession. Football coaching, Belichick, Saban, Carroll, and all the dominoes that fall after it. Are you checking your phone like we are? Are you talking to some of these guys? Are you chuckling? Like, what are you making of everything that's went on the last few days, Coach?
Yeah, I think mainly I've just sort of been sad because, it's just not going to seem the same, guys. And, in the Coach Saban, I think that's a reflection of all the issues these college coaches are facing today. If you read his quote where, he didn't want to have to re-recruit his own team every year, that's got to be extremely taxing on any coach, especially one that's had the success that he has. And then, in the case of Coach Belichick and Coach Carroll, it's just, you just don't picture those two guys as 71, 72-year-old men, and you think they're going to coach forever, and it's just going to be weird not having them there.
Yeah, and to see even more weird, possibly, I mean, Bill Belichick cutting off the sleeves of an Atlanta Falcons hoodie and wearing it the opposite way Dirk Koetter ever would have when he was there. Yes, this is going to be really weird, Coach. I want to get to the games because that's obviously why we have you here, and there's 6 games this weekend. I love some of these matchups. What's Dirk Koetter's number one storyline for Super Wildcard weekend?
Well, there's a lot of really good storylines. I mean, I think the main thing is these teams play all year, and the regular season matters to get home field and to get the bye. And I think in both sides, AFC and NFC, I think the two best teams that proved it during the regular season, and that doesn't mean they'll make it all the way, but I think Baltimore in the AFC and the 49ers in the NFC are the two best teams. And I'm glad it worked out that way, that they got the bye. And I think, there's going to be a couple really good games this week, starting right off with Cleveland, Houston. I also really excited to watch the Rams and the Lions. I think those are two great games we got coming up.
Dirk Koetter, you know his resume, but for the next month, he's going to be ours right here on Idaho Sports Talk KTIK. He's our NFL playoff correspondent. Coach, the check is in the mail, and we do appreciate your time over these next few Fridays. You make us smarter going into these weekends all the time. For Ballgame and I, and we're not quite as, we're a little bit more superficial than you are. We're all about the weather. Obviously, big weather in Kansas City, big weather in Buffalo. And I want to ask you a specific weather question. Everybody says Kansas City has the weather advantage just because Miami's in Miami. But we're talking about like 53 humans versus 53 humans. Does Miami really at a disadvantage, or is this weather just, especially 55 degrees below zero on the wind chill, it's kind of got to be even. There's no advantage in weather like that, right?
Well, that weather is going to stink for both teams.
Yeah.
But I think there is definitely something to whatever advantage there is definitely goes to Kansas City. And, those games, these guys have the best cold weather gear. They got the heated benches. They have every gadget ever known to man to keep those guys warm. But wow, anything below zero is just brutal. And, just even our weather here today in Boise, if you just have to be out and about, you do get a little bit used to it. And, it's going to be tough on the Dolphins with the weather. And then I think even the bigger story is the Dolphins are extremely beat up on defense, and they're missing like their top 3 pass rushers. It's crazy that here we are in the playoffs and they're signing guys off the street
Right.
to come in and play this week at outside linebacker. That's just, because now the practice squads are so much bigger these days, and that they're that thin at rusher. And I mean, that's advantage Kansas City all the way.
Coach, how do the logistics work? Do all 32 NFL teams have a warehouse with winter gear, or is some intern spent the last week buying gear, benches, heaters, coats, all that kind of stuff? How does that work?
Yeah.
No, everybody's got a warehouse. That's, my whole time in Tampa, we're fighting off humidity and thunderstorms, and then we might have one cold weather game a year, and it would always amaze me all the stuff our equipment manager would have up his sleeve. And I've got tons of parka jackets and underneath vests and long sleeve shirts and underwear and everything you could possibly get. And where they store that for the other 364 days a year they don't need it at those warm weather places, I don't know, but they all have it.
I was going to save a question for the end when we get really stupid, or when I get really stupid, but I'll throw it out right here. You've coached so many different places. I think you've coached at 30 different places. What do you do with all your gear? You throw it away every time you move, or you have a warehouse of your own with a whole bunch of gear?
Yeah, right.
I do have a warehouse of my own with a whole bunch of gear. And believe it or not, every time we moved over the years, I had these 3 unbelievably huge duffel bags that my wife Kim had neatly folded everything in large freezer bags and packed it away, and we packed it around all these years, and now I've got it all out in my garage, and I look for people to give it away to. My neighbors have 3 young boys, and they're big Oregon Duck fans, and just going into the college playoffs this year, I gave away a ton of Oregon gear.
Oh, lucky. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, Koetter was on the cutting edge, Oregon, like Achilles Smith, Joey Harrington. Right when they got cool, Koetter was the one that was calling the plays. And then Boise State gets cool as soon as Koetter shows up and brings Helfrich with him.
That's the worst answer, by the way, you could have given, Coach, because Johnny's now going to – Johnny, your best friend, by the way. Johnny, your best friend. He's going to bug you every day now for gear.
That would be cool.
Johnny's issue is we're not the same size.
Well, I don't know how to take that, Coach. Is that a compliment to you or me?
No. Just size. It's a size issue.
It is. Dirk's longer than I am.
Yeah.
Dirk, you coached with Andy Reid at San Francisco State, UTEP, and Missouri. It's well known on Idaho Sports Talk that he's one of your best friends, not just in coaching, but just in life. I watch a lot of Chiefs, Dirk, and I know I watch it differently than you do, but Kansas City just didn't look as good this year from my perspective, and the stats will actually support that, Dirk. They're down. What have you noticed this year with the Chiefs and that offense? It just doesn't seem to have that punch, and I know they don't have Tyreek Hill, but that didn't matter to them last year. They were still able to win the Super Bowl. What do you see this year?
Yeah, I got a lot of friends on that Chiefs staff, and I agree with you 100%. They definitely do not look the same. The surprising thing is, for the first time in many years, they're actually better on defense this year, and it's their defense that's keeping them in a lot of games, more so than their offense. Kelsey looks like, some of these players that were unbelievable players, sometimes it's just like one day to the next, and they go from Pro Bowl level guys to too old in like one day. And he, maybe he's hurt, maybe he's beat up more than he's letting on, but he just doesn't look like the same guy. They've struggled with both of their tackles. Donovan Smith, their left tackle, has been hurt a lot this year. I think their running game has been good. I love Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, the way that 7th round pick, the way that guy runs the ball.
Okay.
To be honest, I think Mahomes tries to do too much, and the receivers haven't really helped him out. And, our good local friend of ours, Joe Blameyer, is the receiver coach at the Chiefs. And every time they drop a pass, I cringe for Joe. It's not his fault, of course, but, I'm hoping their receivers can pick it up a little bit. But I think they should be able to get the win this week, regardless.
Sunday, monster triple header. Pittsburgh, Buffalo kicks it off. Rams, Detroit fired up at the end of the night. I think JP's got all 3 games lined up on KTIK on Sunday. Coach, I know you're an Andy Reid guy. I'm a Mike Tomlin guy. I honestly believe, and this is a selfish question, I think he's not only the best coach in the NFL right now, he might be one of the best coaches in the history of sports, period. Again, I'm selfish with that. Everybody has an opinion about Mike Tomlin. We've heard 1,000 reasons why he's good. How is he good, and why is he good from your perspective?
I think the reason he's good is because I know firsthand players in the NFL want to hear it straight, and they like guys that don't sugarcoat it and guys that tell them the truth. And I know when I watch every press conference I can get my hands on of Mike Tomlin, I love watching that guy's press conference because he doesn't sugarcoat it, and he tells it like it is. And I think he's done a heck of a job, but I think they're walking into a firestorm in Buffalo just because especially with J.J. Watt out, and the fact that they've played 3 different quarterbacks this year. Even though I think Mason Rudolph's doing a decent job, and I like the way they're running the ball at Pittsburgh, I think Buffalo's a hot team right now, and I just don't think the Chiefs have enough firepower to get it done.
Dirk, was that one of your strengths, whether you were coaching at San Francisco State? I think you were in a basement sharing a dorm with, making $7,000 a year, or an NFL head coach. Was that one of your strengths? Don't sugarcoat it. Tell them right to their face what the deal is. Because I think that, I've never been in an NFL locker room with you, but I've certainly interviewed you several times, and I think I know your style. It seems like that's your style. Was that one of your most successful things about you as a coach?
Well, that's definitely my style, and that comes from going back to my dad, watching him all those years. But you just got to ask yourself, what do players want? And even when we had to do the difficult task of cutting players, I always tried to take it upon myself. Every guy we cut, and some of those guys that we cut had no chance to ever make it in the NFL, but I always tried to give them 1 or 2 things that I'd always frame it as, when you get your next opportunity, here's a couple things you need to do better in order to have a chance to make the team. But I think players respond to that, especially in the NFL. I don't know so much about college these days. I think there's a lot of different things going on in college right now, but in the NFL for sure, I think that's a good way to go.
Dirk Koetter joining us. It's our playoff correspondence segment, getting you ready for Super Wildcard weekend. It's going to be cold, frigid outside. You may not want to leave your house. Luckily, you have Prater, myself, and Dirk Koetter to get you through this. Dirk, Matt LaFleur, the coach of the Packers, he actually replaced you in Atlanta when you went to Tampa. He's had the Packers in the playoffs every year except last year. They go to Dallas. They're big dogs. A lot of pressure on the Cowboys this time of year, as you know. What shot, if any, do you give Green Bay going into Dallas on Sunday to win this thing?
Well, they got a shot for sure. But a couple of things are working against them. Number one, I think it's something like 72% of the time when a quarterback in his first playoff game is playing a quarterback that has playoff experience, those first-time quarterbacks only win 28% of the time. We have 4 of those games coming up this week, and that's one of them. Jordan Love's a first-time quarterback against Dak Prescott, who's been there before. That's number one. Number two, the Cowboys are a different team at home. Cowboys are averaging 37.9 points a game at home. Their defense plays better when they're at home. So I think the Packers are a nice story. They've been a little inconsistent. Jordan Love's playing good right now. They're running the ball. Their defense is playing okay, but I just think the Cowboys will be too much for them in Dallas.
Dirk, as you probably know, there are 4 Boise State football players active on rosters right now in the NFL playoffs: DeMarcus Lawrence, Shakir, Cedric Wilson, and Jeremy McNichols. And it's kind of ironic how Jeremy and you guys had this, intertangled national television show back in 2017, I think, Hard Knocks, and Jeremy was struggling, and you guys had to make the unfortunate call to get rid of him, and he went on to do his things, but he's still hanging on, and that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about, the perseverance, and a guy who struggled so mightily early in his NFL career. And I know he's just a practice squad guy. They call him up on Sundays. He has like 5 special team snaps, but he's still getting a check. You got to respect that, don't you?
Absolutely. I had watched Jeremy in his career at Boise State, and the long run of successful running backs at Boise State that have gone on to the NFL. And we all know they got another one coming up next year who's going to be an NFL player.
Yeah.
But when he came to Tampa as a rookie, 5th round pick, something was missing. He just didn't seem like he was all in. He was really struggling in pass protection. And, I love Boise State guys, and I was doing everything I thought that I could do to try to help him and tell him the things he needed to do to make the team. And then it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of what he's done, though, to turn it around. A couple of years ago when he was with the Titans, boy, he really rejuvenated his career. And like you said, Mike, the fact that he's still getting an NFL check, that says a lot about him. And some of these guys, they sort of lose their desire and lose their love for football, doing what they have to do to make a team. And he's hung in there. I'm proud of him.
Dirk Koetter with us, playoff correspondent. All right, Dirk, I think you mentioned this. This is the game of the weekend for me. I'm a huge Sean McVay fan. Him even getting to the Rams to the playoffs with that offensive line and that salary cap blows me away. And the Lions have this weird America's team type of story, the lovable underdog. Give them a stinking chance. And obviously the storyline of Stafford returning and Goff and playing. Who wins this game, in your opinion? Rams, Lions. I love it.
Wow. Yeah, I think this is the game of the weekend. And, the storyline, the whole Goff, Matthew Stafford thing, that's a really cool storyline. Detroit's good at home. Aaron Glenn, the D coordinator for the Lions, he played for us clear back in the day when I was coaching in Jacksonville. He had finished up with the Jets, and I remember we were actually playing the Bucks, and he had like a 100-yard interception return to win a game for us. But, man, the Rams are playing so good on offense. And, think back to 2 years ago when I was helping out over at Boise State. We played that tight game with BYU, and we got a chance to see Nakua, the receiver. And who would have guessed that guy would put up the numbers he's put up? I mean, he looks like an improved Cooper Kupp, and Cooper Kupp was one of the best players in the NFL just 2 years ago. So I think this has all the makings for a shootout. I think Detroit's going to try to run the ball and play defense. And the Rams, man, they are just incredible on offense. Raheem Morris has done a good job as the D coordinator. They got a bunch of young guys around Aaron Donald on that Rams defense. I think it's the best game of the weekend. I think if there's a team that can go on the road and win, it might be the Rams.
Dirk Koetter. I love it. All right, Monday night, they do this now, Dirk. Playoffs on Monday night. Your Tampa Bay Bucks. God, I love what Baker Mayfield's put together this year, and Todd Bowles and Philly. At one point, Dirk, they were 10-1. Now they're 11-6. Totally backed into this thing. Have to go on the road. You know everything about that stadium, obviously, and whatnot. Who you got? Eagles at Buccaneers Monday night.
Well, there's only a handful of guys left in Tampa from when I coached there, but two that are left. They're two of my favorite players anywhere are Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, those receivers.
Hell yeah.
And I agree with you, Johnny. Baker Mayfield has been good for those guys because I think Baker Mayfield is good at feeding his studs. He knows who the guys to get the ball to are. Tampa's playing pretty good on defense. I was really liking Philly, and this collapse is epic, and it's sort of hard to realize that they were so good and now they seem so bad. Injuries are definitely a part of that. The quarterback not throwing passes all week in practice and having a broken joint in his middle finger on his throwing hand, that doesn't sound too good. Their best receivers, question mark with the knee. I think Tampa's got a decent shot right here. And, I think Philly's the better team on paper, but the way they've been playing, it's not like you just turn that around in 6 days. So I think the Bucs got a good chance.
He's Dirk Koetter, and he's going to be with us every Friday through the NFL playoffs. We're looking forward to that. Our NFL playoff correspondent. Love this conversation. Appreciate your time, Coach. One more has nothing to do with the playoffs, but I got to ask you this. As you know, we had Chris Peterson on our show earlier this year. He said, and he started off by saying this, he goes, I've never said this before, but if I ever coach again, it's probably going to be in the NFL. So I ask you this, especially with an opening in Seattle right now, do you ever see, and you probably had breakfast with him this morning, do you ever see Coach Peterson coaching again. And how curious would you be to see him coaching in the NFL, whether it's a head coach, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, or whatever?
Yeah.
I would love to see it. I would love to see it. And, Pete was always joking that, he wanted to get in the NFL. So when I was in Tampa, I said, okay, come on, let's go. Come down to Tampa with me.
Call his bluff.
And, he was doing a little too good in his Washington career. I was actually thinking about that the other day. I know he's close to the GM in Seattle. And then on top of that, today, UW loses their coach to Alabama. So I'm sure with just all these coaching openings going on, I was even thinking about Pete at Alabama, the AD there, Greg Byrne. For fans that don't know, Greg Byrne's parents are Idaho State grads, went to school with my parents back in the day at Idaho State. And Greg Byrne was a young, up-and-coming athletic administrator at Oregon when Coach Pete and I were coaching up there. So I wouldn't even be surprised if old Greg Byrne made a phone call to Coach Pete. And, I tried to get a hold of Pete today. I'm not trying to start any rumors, but he wasn't answering his phone. So,
no, I mean, Dirk, I think if there was just ever an NFL gig that Chris Peterson would just even nibble on, just take a tiny little peek, it would be that Seattle gig for a lot of reasons. Now, Prater asked you his weird question. I have my weird question. Coach, Jameis Winston and Dirk Koetter were attached, and that was kind of your shot in the league. If it would have popped with Jameis and he would have been this MVP candidate, Dirk Koetter's probably still coaching in the league and this and this and that. And it didn't work, whatever reason. Jameis moved on, and everybody knows, I'm going to assume, what happened last weekend with the Saints. They were in victory formation. Jameis switched the play up, and they scored a touchdown to get their buddy a teeter. Kind of a disrespectful move, if you ask me, to the Giants and Dennis Allen. If that was Dirk Koetter, not Dennis Allen there, would you have more of a problem with that, Coach? And you know Jameis better than anybody.
Yeah, that's a complex question because, if you read any of the follow-up of what all Jameis's teammates were saying after that, Jameis is a really good teammate, and deep down, Jameis is an awesome kid. But he is also, at the same time, he's one of those guys that sometimes can't get out of his own way. And I really have no problem with them trying to get the guy the touchdown. My main problem is they shouldn't have lined up in victory formation. And then, if Jameis wanted to get him line up in power I and hand it off. But, if you noticed, if you guys notice on there, in the victory formation, Taysom Hill was the safety man, the guy that's 12 yards back behind the quarterback. And when they snapped the ball and handed off, if you look at Taysom Hill's body language, he's like, "Oh, please don't score." But if you line up in victory formation in the NFL, that's a sign that you're going to take a knee. And so, hey, the Falcons got their butt kicked in that game, and they shouldn't be whining. They were already down 41-17 or whatever it was. But if you were going to try to score on the last play, don't line up in victory. And don't line up in victory. That was bad by Jameis. It was disrespectful to his head coach. If he would have just changed it and lined up in a regular formation and they got in, I don't think it's as bad. And I'm sure Jameis wasn't thinking about anything but getting that kid a touchdown, the guy that had led the league the year before.
Yeah.
But the way it turned out, that's not something you put on your resume.
Great perspective, Coach Koetter. Can't wait for next week as we preview the divisional playoff round. Coach, enjoy the wild card weekend, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, you guys too. We're going to all be locked in our houses. It's going to be miserable, so let's enjoy some football the next couple of days.
Well said. Appreciate you, Coach. That's Dirk Koetter, and that's why you listen to Idaho Sports Talk. That's our Dollar Loan Center video segment as well. You can find that segment on our YouTube channel. All Foreman and Prater, you're going to have all this good stuff up on our app and our website as well. Prater on the ball game, KTIK, the ticket.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic Studios, this is Ticket Traffic.